When it comes to cooking animations, I think Monster Hunter World is still the gold standard, but check this out. We got slicing, we got splashing, we got searing, we got Salt Bay, and look at that, a pretty tasty cutscene. Okay, Horizon, I see you, but now I want to taste. So join me in checking out the official Horizon Cookbook. The official Horizon Cookbook by Victoria Rosenthal and Rick Barba takes us on a culinary adventure through the world of Horizon, a place filled with danger yet abundant with unique food and vibrant flavors. After all, hunting robotic animal thingies can work up quite an appetite. The recipes you'll find in this book are compiled by Mildoof Boarbroiler, a chef from the tribe of Osram who you meet in the settlement of Chainscrape in Horizon Forbidden West. This book is kind of like his journal for all of the recipes and documents he collected in his travels. The recipes are categorized by geographical regions that are inhabited by the distinct tribes in the story, with one drink chapter at the end that's dedicated to the potions that Aloy consumes in the game. As expected, many of the book's recipes feel very rustic to match that hunter and gatherer theme and aesthetic of Horizon. Many of the recipes are directly inspired by in-game food items and materials, but some of them are original recipes with a similar vibe that fits into the game's world. I especially like how all the recipes have very creative and thematic names. It really adds to the immersiveness of the experience. Each recipe starts with some flavor text that gives some context to the tribal cultures. These blurbs are the perfect length, not too short and uninteresting, and not too long and drawn out, which makes for some fun reading. The recipe steps themselves are also really easy to follow and not too complicated or convoluted with steps. This book is chock full of visual content, lots of sketches and Horizon artwork and illustrations scattered throughout the book. The food photos look very light, vibrant, and tasty, with plating and set dressings that match the look and feel of the game. I think it's awesome that the book visualizes every recipe, and considering that the in-game items don't have photos and only have gray icons, it's even more impressive to come up with something tasty looking without having a visual reference. Now we're closing the book and moving on to the kitchen. Let's hunt down the 3 recipes to see what flavors are on the horizon. Our adventure starts in Plainsong, the Utaru tribe's home, to try some spicy beanweed morsels. This filling Utaru dish consists of blocks of marinated bean curd, lightly fried, coated in a spicy paste, and served with a small portion of grains. First thing we gotta do is to make the pickled veg. In a container, pour in half a cup of water with half a cup of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, and a pinch of kosher salt. Combine together that pickling solution and then add in half a cucumber, half a daikon radish, and half a carrot, all thinly sliced. Once everything is well mixed, cover it up and place this in the fridge for at least 24 hours, and we're gonna eat these with a beanweed tomorrow. To the Utaru tribe, this is beanweed, but to us, this is tofu, specifically 16 ounces of firm tofu cut into bite-sized pieces. We need to get as much water out of these as possible, so place a plate on top of the tofu and let something heavy sit on top, like a cast iron skillet like this one. Let this sit for 10 minutes, and as you can see, it pressed out quite a lot of tofu juice. Now in a large bowl, mix together a 1/4 cup of gochujang paste, a half cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, a tablespoon of rice vinegar, a teaspoon of sesame oil, and 1 teaspoon of potato starch. Whisk this all together and then add in the tofu pieces, fully coat it in the marinade, and let this sit in the fridge for an hour to soak up all that flavor. After an hour has passed, let's cook up the tofu. Heat up a teaspoon of canola oil over medium-high heat and place in the tofu pieces while reserving the marinade. Cook the tofu for about 2 to 3 minutes per side until all sides have browned. Then transfer to a plate. Add some more canola oil to the same pan and then add in 6 sliced shiitake mushrooms and 6 ounces of baby bok choy cut up into bite-sized pieces. Cook these up for about 5 to 8 minutes until the veggies are soft. Then add in 3 chopped up scallions and fry that up for another 3 minutes. Then add back in the tofu along with a reserved sauce and cook that for about 3 minutes until the sauce has been absorbed by the goodies. Place your veggies on a bed of cooked rice, some kimchi, and that pickled vegetables you prepared yesterday for a colorful bowl of spicy beanweed morsels. Now we're ready to go to the next stop in our journey, Chainscrape, the home of the Osram tribe and the book's author Mildoof himself. And here we will try Mildoof's signature dish, meat in the middle. We're going to start with the filling by heating a frying pan over medium-high heat and cooking up 3 cloves of minced garlic with 2 minced shallots for about 5 minutes until soft. I followed this, but it looked like I burnt my garlic and shallots, so for take 2, I decided to lower the heat to medium instead of medium-high and 3 minutes instead of 5. Much better. Transfer it to a bowl and let this cool completely. Once cooled, add to that a pound of ground lamb, a tablespoon of chopped fresh mint, 1 tablespoon of ground fennel seeds, 2 teaspoons of dried thyme, a teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper, a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and 2 tablespoons of panko breadcrumbs. Make sure to mix everything well. Split the meat mixture into 2 halves and place each on a piece of plastic wrap. Then shape the meat into a long tube shape about the size of a sheet of puff pastry. Then roll up the meat with the wrap and refrigerate for at least 15 minutes. Now to assemble, the recipe calls for a sheet of puff pastry. Mine came like this, so I had to roll it out into a 12 by 12 inch square, then cut that in half and place the lamb on one side of the pastry. Then we're going to take an egg and whisk it together with a teaspoon of water, and we're going to brush that on the part of the pastry without the meat on it. Roll the dough over it tightly and pinch the pastry together to seal. Wrap it again in plastic wrap, but this time we're going to place these in the freezer for 20 minutes and do the same with the other portion. After that, place some parchment paper on a baking sheet and spray with nonstick spray before placing the sausage rolls on them and cutting each into 4 equal pieces and brushing them with that same egg wash. Then in a small bowl, combine a teaspoon of white sesame seeds with a teaspoon of black sesame seeds and a teaspoon of dehydrated onion flakes, and we're going to use that to top each roll. Finally, bake this in the oven for 10 minutes at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, then reduce the heat to 350 degrees and bake for another 20 minutes until the lamb is cooked through and you have a nice golden crust that wraps around that meat in the middle. Thanks for the recipe, Milduff. Finally, we head to the Memorial Grove, the capital of the Tanact tribe, to try a very rare and special lowland Tanact treat made with charred winter pale berries that are set on fire with a splash of strong brew. This is Fruit on Fire. We start by making coconut whipped cream. For this, place a 13-ounce can of coconut cream in the fridge for 24 hours so that the cream can separate from the water. Then open up the can and scoop out the thick cream to a medium bowl. You're supposed to whip this up with a hand mixer for 30 seconds, but my coconut cream is not creamy at all. It feels more like powdery coconut chalk. So I added a bit of coconut water back in to hydrate it to get it to a whippable state. Yeah, better, but this doesn't look like whipped cream at all. Maybe the next step will stabilize the consistency as we add a 1/3 cup of powdered sugar and a pinch of kosher salt. Whip for 3 minutes until fluffy, but mine ain't really that fluffy at all. It's more grainy and curdly. Not that appetizing looking, but the good news is that it's pretty damn tasty. And at the end of the day, it's the taste that counts. Okay, let's work on the fruit. In a saucepan, add in a pound of pitted cherries and a 1/4 cup of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of chopped up palm sugar, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. Cook this on medium-high heat and simmer until the sugars have fully dissolved. Then remove the pan from the heat and add in a 1/4 cup of cherry liqueur and mix well. Place the pan back on the stove and bring the mixture to a simmer and continue to cook for 10 minutes to reduce the liquid and cook off the alcohol. Once that's reduced, we can prepare our bowl with a scoop of non-dairy ice cream. I'm using vanilla coconut. Top it with the saucy cherries and the coconut whipped cream for a fresh and sweet serving of Fruit on Fire. Alright, let's try out all this food. I'm gonna start off with the meat in the middle. I love sausage rolls and these ones are pretty solid, incredibly meaty and savory. I think the ratio of meat to pastry is a bit off. I'd like a bit more of a flaky pastry, but I think it just might be the type of puff pastry I used. Not a deal breaker though, but next time I would probably just use a different brand of puff pastry. I'm loving the gaminess of the lamb. It gives it a different meaty flavor than your usual sausage roll, although I don't really taste the mint much. I would probably be a bit more generous with the seasonings next time since I have a preference for stronger flavors. The sesame topping looks nice and the onion flakes makes the crust more savory. Overall, not a bad dish. Moving on to the spicy beanweed morsels. How does this tofu dish stack up? Not bad as well. Super flavorful with a spicy, salty kick from the gochujang. The tofu has a nice spongy texture that goes really well with a rich, thick sauce, and that strong flavor is counterbalanced by the white rice and the fresh taste of the pickled veggies. When I ate this, the veggies have marinated for 24 hours, so they were all still pretty crunchy, but when I ate them days later, they were even better. Still crunchy, but a bit softer, and they've absorbed more of that vinegar marinade. If you prefer chicken instead of tofu, I'm sure this sauce would work just as well with other meats. I might make this again next week, but chicken instead. Good stuff. Time for some fruit on fire. I am worried about the coconut cream, but hey, this is actually pretty damn good. I was scared that the coconut cream was going to have a weirdly distracting grainy texture, but it's actually oddly tasty. It kind of tastes like sweet coconut slushy. I know this probably isn't the intent of the recipe, but wow, I'm into it. The cherry sauce with that cherry liqueur is tart and sweet, and that warm richness marries perfectly with the cold vanilla coconut ice cream. This dish was the one I was most worried about, but you know what? I think out of the three, this is my favorite. Sometimes life has happy accidents, and I think I could get addicted to my coconut cream abomination. So is the Horizon Cookbook any good? I like it. I think this is a very thematic cookbook with tasty rustic looking recipes inside. Although I wasn't big into the games, this book made me appreciate the game's environments and lore, and it surprised me by showing me how much of a factor food actually plays in the games. Thumbs up!